when India's finance minister met the IMF in Washington, D.C. and said, look, we are going to help Sri Lanka. And that gave a lot of confidence to the Paris Club, whereas China was not part of the Paris Club, but they were doing it on their own and they independently worked with Sri Lanka. The Chinese and the Indians helped us in two different ways. The Chinese actually was the first to sign off on the debt restructure. A lot of people don't know that. Even though it was India that first gave us a signal and said, look, we are on board. When India's finance minister met the IMF in Washington, D.C. and said, look, we are going to help Sri Lanka and we'll be there with them and we'll make sure. And that gave a lot of confidence to the Paris Club and the other creditors that we would put in place a program that would ensure that our debt was at some point in time after the restructure be sustainable. Now, India co-chaired with Japan, France, the Paris Club, which was important for the international sovereign bond holders in the sense that nations, the bilateral creditors, were actually rallying behind Sri Lanka and supporting it to structure a deal, right? And India, what it did was in the restructure helped that process, whereas China was not part of the Paris Club. It was not part of the what we call the group that was working with the government of Sri Lanka, but they were doing it on their own. China had initial issues saying, look, Chinese debt also need to be considered as multilateral creditors' debt so that they should also get the same terms and conditions, etc. And they independently work with Sri Lanka. There has been a lot of, this whole story about the Chinese debt trap. There have been academic pieces written on this. And what they suggest is, look, the political authorities here in Sri Lanka, obviously wanted this done. Nobody forced anything on us. So to be fair by the Chinese, they never forced anything. They offered something. And then we said, look, let's do it. Phase 1, phase 2, and many others. So those lessons, I think, are important in going forward.